All right, so this is how to make crepes for Bradley. So first, things first, you should get all your ingredients ready. That would be the crepes, the Nutella, a couple spoons. It makes it easier to get the Nutella onto the crepe, and then some butter. So first things first, we're going to turn the stove on. And for crepes, you don't want the stove to get too hot. So we're just gonna turn it on and then turn it down to about 3. And that's when we're gonna put some butter on the pan. We can let the pan get a little bit warm, but we're gonna put some butter on the pan and let that melt off a little bit, and then put the crepe on top. The crepes sometimes are a little bit stuck together. They're frozen. I already pulled this top one off, so sometimes it's a little bit easier to let them sit out for a little bit in order to pull them apart a little bit more easily, because sometimes it gets a little hard and then the crepe breaks. So just a little forewarning. I forgot to grab a butter knife, so I'm going to do that now. All right, so butter, it doesn't matter if it's softened already or if it's straight from the fridge. You're gonna put a little pat of butter onto the frying pan, and then you can move it around in a circle with a knife if you want. You don't have to like scrape the pan or anything, just let the butter melt so that it's a little bit more spread out. And if you don't want to do that with a knife, then you can just grab the handle of the pan and move it around a little bit too. I try to make it about the size of the crepe, because the next piece is putting the crepe on the pan and sort of letting, it's frozen now, so we're sort of letting the butter get onto the side of it, and then I like to flip it, because I like the non-browned side to be the outside of the crepe. So I let the butter get on the inside of the crepe. I put it on both sides, but then I flip it over. You notice that I'm using my hand right now, but that's because the pan's not too hot, but you probably want to use a spatula. The best spatula for crepes is this really flat one, because it's easier to lift, and it doesn't have, or it doesn't make the crepe break as easily as a spatula that is a little bit thicker. So recommend using the flat spatula. Next piece would be to grab a spoonful of the Nutella. I grab 2 spoons so that I can take a spoonful of the Nutella, and then when I'm putting the Nutella on the crepe, I can use the other spoon to like kind of force it off the one spoon. So so you grab your spoonful, however much you would want, if you want a more chocolatey or less chocolatey. This is a good amount, so it's kind of like a heaping spoonful, and you could probably shake it off onto the crepe if you want to. I'm only doing that because my other spoon, or my hand, is being used right now for holding the camera, but you could easily take your other spoon and sort of just push it right off the top of that crepe, and then you want to kind of spread it out. So bear with me a second. I'm going to try to get the rest of this off of the spoon. Hold on one second. Okay, so I've scraped it off. Now I'm just kind of making a line down the crepe, not all the way to the ends, because when you fold it over, it's going to kind of push this stuff toward the ends too. So if you put it all the way to the end, it's likely to leak a little bit. So try to get it spread out a little bit more in the middle. There we go. And then usually I let it sit there for a little bit, let the butter get nice and melty, Maybe even turn up the stove to about a 4 to give the crepe a little bit more warmth. And then I'll grab my plate while that's doing its magic. Looks good. So I see those little bubbles coming up. That means it's cooking. Notice I just moved this pan a little bit because we really want the center of the flame to be around the crepe. And I noticed that the bubbles were not as existent over here, so I'm going to let it cook for a few more seconds to get that side of the crepe a little bit warmer because it was kind of off the center of the flame there. So cook, and then I'm going to grab my spatula. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to switch hands with the phone here. I'm going to grab my spatula, and I'm going to grab the end of the crepe here, and I'm just going to flip it into the middle. And that's why this thinner spatula is important, because the thicker ones would break the crepe. So that in the middle, and then grab this end, and then flip that into the middle. And we've got ourselves a nicely folded crepe. So from there, you can either scoot this under the crepe really fast to try to get all the crepe in there without breaking, or you can try to flip it right onto the plate. So the plate I put right next to the stove so that I could get there quickly. So I'm just gonna attempt to scoot it under and then put it on the plate. Let's shake it off there. So that is our crepe. And then if you want, you can add a little bit of powdered sugar, which is the first container here, and just sprinkle the crepe with some powdered sugar. Bradley likes his crepe cut up a little bit, so I let it sit for a minute and let the crepe kind of hold its consistency, and then I'll cut it up into smaller biteable pieces for him. So how to make a crepe.